Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Playmore69, aka Michael here, and this is the All in All Podcast, episode 26. And in today's episode, I'll be bringing back something that I've done before on the podcast, and that is a tier list. I've only ever done one podcast tier list, and that was episode 10, I believe. But I decided to bring it back here because this is something that I really enjoy, and it's Star Wars, and I thought it would make for a great tier list. And, obviously I'm trying to keep with the podcast sort of what I set out to do with it. And that's to, make it an all-encompassing show where I do multiple things every week. And every week is kind of different in that way. And, I feel like the past couple of weeks I've been falling into this sort of like react sphere kind of, because that's mainly what I've been doing. So it's going to be a nice, just chill tier list of Star Wars, and I'll be doing movies and TV shows, and these are all canon. And I will leave the link to the tier list down below if you want to do it yourself. So I don't really know how to go, ranking these, if I should go any specific order, but I think I'll just go with chronological order since I think that makes most sense. And I wanted to get the one out of the way I haven't seen, and that's Star Wars Resistance. I have not seen this yet. I have heard very bad reviews on it though, so it's going to be going in the haven't seen. But other than that, I've seen all of these multiple times, so I can give a really good opinion on them. Anyways though, let's get into it. I'll be going in chronological order, so yeah, let's see where I rank them. So the first one is Episode 1, Phantom Menace. I very much dislike this movie. It has a couple of good things going for it, but overall, it's not so good. I think the lightsaber duel with Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan is really the only good redeeming factor of the movie, and then the Emperor Palpatine scenes. That was about it. Like the pod race scene was a big waste of time. I think that I'll give my commentary over each movie, and I'll kind of give my sort of take on what could make it better in that way. And I think what would have made the Phantom Menace better is that if they actually sort of focused less on Anakin and more on Emperor Palpatine, maybe even Darth Maul, and maybe even Count Dooku. Maybe have a scene or two with him about like him falling into like distrust to the Jedi Order. I think that would have been a good scene too. Now, this isn't the worst Star Wars movie by any means. I would honestly say that it's relatively, some people would put it mid-tier. I would put it lower, mid-tier. I'd put it at D. I think that's pretty good overall. I mean, F is too harsh. I think only one movie deserves to go in F, but yeah, I'd firmly put it in D. So next movie is Attack of the Clones, which I think is probably just as worse. I can't really think that it's better than Episode 1. I mean, what was really good in Episode 2? The Obi-Wan scenes were great, but the attack on Geonosis was also great. Does that push it to C tier though? I don't know. And the lightsaber duel with Count Dooku is okay. Wasn't anything crazy though. I'd honestly just put it in D tier. I might rearrange these after I'm done, but for now it's gonna go in D tier. So now we get into the Clone Wars. So the first one that comes in chronological order is the movie. This is like at the very start of the Clone Wars. And the Clone Wars movie is not good. I'd honestly just put it in D tier as well. I mean, are there any like good scenes? Like, is it better than these two movies? Maybe, honestly. But is it a good movie objectively? I don't think so. I'd keep it at D tier, honestly. Yeah, I think D tier works for it. So now we get into my favorite Star Wars media, and this is... I could go on and on about this series because I love it so much. Like, this to me, unpopular opinion, hot take, is the best Star Wars has been and probably the best it will ever be. Like, I don't know if it'll ever be topped. It is S tier, and S tier by a mile. Like, you know, I will say this right now, just so you don't have to wait around or anything, but Star Wars The Clone Wars to me is the best piece of Star Wars canon media that we've ever had, TV show or movie. I think it's better than any movie. I think it's better than any other TV show. I think it will always be the best. Like, I don't know if something will top it. And also, I'm just noticing something here. The Bad Batch is also not here, but I haven't seen that one yet, and I will start watching it because actually a little bit of an interesting story about that. I was going to wait until season 2 came out to watch it, but season 2 is delayed, and it looks like it's still being delayed. But I will watch season 1 of it, which is only 16 episodes, but it's animated in the Clone Wars style, which honestly I think is the perfect animation style, and it, you know, Lucasfilm should stay with that because it just works so well, you know. So if Disney wants to create more Star Wars like animation, if they just do it in the Clone Wars format, I think they'll have a lot more success. But yeah, Star Wars The Clone Wars to me is so good. I can rattle off like 1,000 points of why it's so good, but I think the bigger points are showing Anakin's dark side. Like, it shows that time and time again in the Clone Wars, which is just amazing to see. Like, him force choking certain people, the Imperial music playing in the background when he's like teetering to the dark side. It's really good. It depicts it so well. And not only with like depicting all the things that are going on within the war, because like that's the thing I really like about the Clone Wars that many people don't give it credit for, is because when the Clone Wars starts off, it starts off extremely simple. It's just the Separatists versus the Republic. It's just a war. But after season 1, it gets so much more complicated to where it's like, oh, now we have these Mandalorians here. Now we have the pirates here. And, you know, before you know it, you're getting into the later seasons, and there's all of these overarching like arcs going on at the same time. And then by the time the Clone Wars ends, you realize how crazy those 3 years were in the Star Wars universe, that it wasn't just as simple as the Republic versus the Separatists. And I really think they depict that extremely well in the Clone Wars. And honestly, the Clone Wars series is something that I go back and watch and think that, you know, this is how they can improve Star Wars, is 1, keep this animation style, and 2, start making more TV shows in between movies. And I think that they will have a really good success on that, and also get Dave Filoni to direct it. So now we get to episode 3, I believe. Where's episode 3? Right here. So I like episode 3. I know it's very controversial. Episode 3 to me is probably my favorite Star Wars movie, to be honest. It's easy A tier. I don't know if I want to put it S tier, just because I think S tier is only reserved for one spot. Like, I don't think that it might go S tier. I'll have to wait and see. I might re-rank that, but for now it goes in A tier. I kind of only want to keep the Clone Wars in S tier because I think that It is. If I'm putting this in S tier, it's the only other thing I'll put in S tier, but it is amazing. I like episode 3. The Obi-Wan and Anakin duel, to me, is the best live action Star Wars duel. And oh yeah, I also wanted to talk about this with the Clone Wars, is that it really spoiled me in the sense of the lightsaber battles done in animation are so much better than the movie ones by far. And that's just limitation to do with the actors and actresses, that, you know, doing these amazing flips and choreography is just not really possible like live action. So like in an animated series, the lightsaber battles are a lot just more, you know, it's more than just two people swinging a sword. It's all of this choreography going into it. It's the flips, it's the kicks, it's, you know, these crazy acrobatic feats, and I think the Clone Wars just does that really well. But episode 3, I think I would put it S tier, because it's my favorite Star Wars movie by far. So favorite Star Wars just piece of media of all time here, and then favorite Star Wars movie. That probably rounds up my S tier. I don't think I will put anything else in S tier, but anyways, let's continue on. So I don't know what comes first. I think it's Solo, and then Rebels, and then Rogue One. So Solo, where would I put Solo? I think Solo is a good movie. Is it a great movie? No, it's not. But it's okay. I'd put it at C tier, honestly. Like, it didn't impress me, but it didn't disappoint me. It's kind of just one of those mid movies that, you know, I like, but it wasn't anything crazy, basically. And I think they kind of depicted Han Solo a little bit wrong in a way of, you know, he's supposed to learn to not just care about himself. He learned that in the original trilogy, like 4, 5, and 6. But it seems like in the Solo movie, he kind of learned that by the end. And it was like, maybe that's like they're trying to say like he started to learn it and he didn't learn it all the way. And that's why when it came to episode 4, 5, and 6, he went back to, you know, just caring about himself. And then he had to relearn that. But I don't know. I think that was a little bit maybe wrong on the director's part, but whatever. I think the Solo story was just a mid-tier movie. It was okay. It's not great, but it's not bad. So I put it in C tier. Rebels. Rebels is hard to rate because it was directed by Dave Filoni. So there is goodness in it, even though that he had to tone it down for Disney, because it's way worse than Clone Wars, just because like the animation style I really dislike in Rebels. I don't think it was good. Like if they would have stuck with the Clone Wars animation style, I think it would have been a lot better. But Dave Filoni was limited of what he could do. There were very good scenes in Rebels though. Like I think of Ahsoka versus Darth Vader. Probably one of the most impactful and emotional lightsaber duels of all time. You also have Maul versus Obi-Wan for the final time. A really good fight scene that is only like 3 seconds long. It's a really good fight scene, really good fan service. You have to be a really big Star Wars fan to appreciate that fight scene. But for Star Wars Rebels, I would probably rate it... I'd rate it B tier because there were really good scenes in it. Thrawn was one of them. Like the reason I'm rating it this high is because of Ahsoka and the part she played in it where she actually fought Vader. That was great. The part where the Emperor showed up, I think they depicted Darth Vader pretty well. I also think adding Thrawn in was a big plus. And I also think was a really good plus of what they did with Ezra is that either they had to kill him off or they had to send him into the unknown region and they did, and they also sent Thrawn into the unknown region, and we don't know what happened to them. But I would put it at a B tier just because there were really good scenes in Rebels, and even though some scenes, you know, made it deserve to be down here, I'd put it at B tier just because there were really good memorable scenes that were good in it. So now that brings us to Rogue One. I'd put Rogue One at A tier. I like Rogue One. It's not a perfect Star Wars movie, but for what it was great. And also something that I guess is like new to Star Wars is that all the main characters die at the end of the movie, which I thought was quite interesting. But I think they tell the story really well, and again, you have to be a really big Star Wars fan to appreciate this movie, because there's so much stuff you have to know what's going on at the time, you know, about the plans and getting them to Leia and all of that. But I think that even the ending scene, I think that really cemented the movie, with Darth Vader like going down the hallway and he's like just slicing through the rebel soldiers, and they're like taking the plans, they're giving them to Leia, and it syncs up perfectly with the, you know, original New Hope, obviously. So I'd put it at A tier. I really enjoyed it a lot. Okay, so now A New Hope, the first Star Wars movie. Where would I rank it? Well, I don't want this list to be too top heavy, but I'd put it at B tier, and I'd put it above Rebels. And the only reason I put it at B tier is I think it's out of episode 4, 5, and 6, the original trilogy, I think it's the worst one. And again, even though it was really great, I think episode 5 and 6 were better than episode 4. And the only reason I say that is episode 4, it was the first Star Wars movie, and, you know, George was trying to kind of lay the foundation, but he left it very open-ended, obviously. And I think that, you know, from an overall standpoint, it was good, but I don't know if it was great. And, you know, again, I'm someone who grew up with the original with the prequel trilogy, not the original trilogy, because I'm, you know, 21, so I grew up watching these movies, not these movies. But I did watch these movies, but I guess I prefer episode 3 to episode 4. And, you know, maybe if you were to ask someone who's like, you know, double my age and has been into Star Wars a lot longer than me, and, you know, maybe saw these coming out or these when they were young, then they would probably rank these at S tier and they would rank this down here. But again, this is just a personal opinion. I liked it, but I don't think it compares with episode 3. So now we have The Empire Strikes Back. Really good movie. I'd put it at A tier. I don't know. I guess I would put it above Rogue One. Yeah, I'd put it above Rogue One because objectively it's a really good movie. Yeah, I'd keep it above Rogue One. I really like this because this was obviously the famous scene of like, you know, no, I'm not your father. And the lightsaber duel was a lot better than in this one than it was in for B, obviously, for episode 4. But yeah, Empire Strikes Back, I'd put it at high A tier. And now Return of the Jedi. This one is my favorite movie out of the original trilogy. I'd honestly put it at S tier. I might leave it at S tier. Let me think. Hold on. Yeah, I might leave it at S tier because I really enjoy it. It was a really good movie. And the final scene was amazing. I'd keep it at S tier. I really like it. And that's mainly just because of the final movie, or I mean the final scene in the movie, where Luke fights Darth Vader and he defeats him, and you know, then obviously Emperor Palpatine starts shocking Luke because he doesn't strike down Vader, and then Vader gets up and then picks up, you know, Emperor Palpatine, throws him down the chute. Really good. I just really love the final scene. The space battle scene at the end of the Return of the Jedi is cool, but overall the overall movie is great. I think the only part I really didn't like was the Ewoks, but I might leave this at S tier because I'm trying to think with like S tier, right? These are all pieces of Star Wars media that I would want to watch again and again and again. And I'm looking at these three and I would watch them over again, like every single one multiple times. So I want to keep these at S tier. So sadly, well, we're not in the sequel trilogy yet. We have The Mandalorian. Where would I rank The Mandalorian? Let me think. I think I'd put The Mandalorian at B tier. And I think the only reason I put it at B tier is because it's a lot of weirdness going on with it. I think I put it above Rebels, or actually, maybe I put it above Rebels. I do like The Mandalorian, but I think there's big flaws within the show, like kind of like how they explain or depict Jedi as this mystical being when The Mandalorian is only supposed to be like 5 years after Return of the Jedi. And they're talking about like Jedis they don't know existed. And yet the Mandalorians as a people have been fighting Jedi for like over 1,000 years. And they talk about Jedi like, oh, I don't know who these people are. So that was quite odd to me. I really don't understand that like at all. But that is something like constantly talked about in The Mandalorian, is like, oh, these mystical beings, the Jedi. And it's like, no, that's just bad writing, I guess. I mean, I honestly don't get it. But yeah, The Mandalorian's okay. It's not great, I don't think. I mean, it's got some great scenes, but I think it has some major problems with it, just like Rebels in a way, of like, these are serious story flaws that, why are you making this? You know, that's the thing. It's like, why are you talking about Jedi like they're mystical beings and, you know, such things like that. But other than that, I put it at B tier. It might keep impressing me, you know, if more comes out, but for now, keep it at B tier. So now we get into the worst trilogy of Star Wars, the sequel trilogy. I think it's even worse than the prequel trilogy. So let's just get into episode 7, A Force Awakens. I really dislike this movie. I remember when it first came out, I was a big hater of this movie, and I still heavily dislike it, and that's mainly to do with the fact of the ending scene. That ending scene where Kylo Ren is fighting Finn and Rey, that should have been the end of the movie. He should have killed both of them, and that should have been literally episode 7. That would have been boom, roll credits after that. And that would have made sense. And I still don't know how Finn picked up a lightsaber when he was a stormtrooper and have never fought with a lightsaber before, was fighting against Kylo Ren, and then he gets slashed in the back and completely survives. I still don't understand that. I don't think this deserves F tier, just because, man, I'm gonna bump episode 2 up to C because of the Obi-Wan scenes, because I was thinking about it and I was like, no, it doesn't deserve to be here. But yeah, this is, again, I'd put it at high D tier, but the reason it's at D tier is because of the final scene. It just makes no sense, like, at all. Like, you can explain why Rey was sort of like doing those things, or like, you know, was able to pick up a lightsaber and maybe defend Kylo, even though she never had before. If, you know, you went into her backstory and, like, you know, talked about like who her parents were and all that, and, you know, made a big deal. But Finn should have died in that fight scene, and Kylo, you know, 99.999% of the time should have just won it, but it makes no sense. So again, D tier. So now we get into the worst Star Wars movie ever, in my opinion, and it's straight F tier. I don't really know how anyone can defend The Last Jedi. It was absolutely horrible. I mean, I can still remember the hate when I first watched it. Like, especially when they went to the casino planet, that was like wasted time. You know, I think the only character I remember in the entire movie that I actually liked was Poe Dameron, and that was it. Every single thing was wrong about this movie. You know, I think that they, you know, killed Luke Skywalker off for no reason. I don't know why they did that. It just, everything was wrong about it. And, you know, not only was A Force Awakens almost like a recreation of A New Hope, it was like The Last Jedi was trying to be a recreation of, you know, Empire Strikes Back with fighting on Hoth and stuff. But, you know, they said, oh, it's a salt planet, and they had to say that 10 times. So it was just bad. Like, it's a Star Wars movie that I don't think I'll ever watch again because it's that bad. Like, I totally just want to forget the sequel trilogy even existed. Like, I wish Star Wars would just end at episode 6, or if events happened after episode 6, like The Mandalorian, were just written better, because the sequel trilogy was written terribly. And I don't know why Disney decided to, you know, split up the movies to where one director directs episode 7 and 9, and then one directs episode 8. Like, I don't understand why they did that. I think that's honestly why the movies are so messed up to begin with, because, you know, if you watch episode 7 and then you watch 7 and 8, or then you watch 7 and then 8 and 9, it just makes no sense. So I'd put it at F tier. I would never watch that movie again. So the final movie here, episode 9. Where would I put it? It's got some cool scenes in it. That's about it. I mean, the Emperor Palpatine bringing him back, I think, wasn't good. I honestly wish that they didn't bring Palpatine back, because then it's like, well, then what happened in episode 6? Did that matter at all? So it's, again, Disney's writing. But for episode 9, I'd put it at C tier. Trying to think of I would put it above Solo, and the reason I would put it above Solo is because I guess the fight scene was actually good when Rey fought Palpatine, and also when you know, Kylo joined her and stuff. That was great. Really enjoyed that. I wish they did more of that. But I guess overall, from a movie standpoint, I would say it's better than 7 and 8. Not by much, by 7, but it's better. Would I watch it again? Maybe. But I don't know. It was okay. I just wish that the sequel trilogy just wasn't... I just wish it didn't exist to begin with. That's my main thing. If episodes 7, 8, and 9 just became non-canon tomorrow, I'd be so happy. But, you know, I don't think that's reality. anyways, though, that's my tier list. If you want to do it for yourself, I'll obviously leave the link in the description down below. But, you know, and if you have a comment agreeing or disagreeing with any of my picks, I'd love to hear it. I think that I would stand firmly behind this list. I think this is... I think most Star Wars fans can agree. I think there definitely are more... I think there's a debate to have in the middle, but I think that if you ask, you know, really big Star Wars fans what they think the best, you know, TV show or a movie, if they were to pick one, I think a lot of them would pick The Clone Wars, Episode 3, or The Empire Strikes Back as the best piece of media for Star Wars, whether it's a TV show or movie. But anyways, I also have, I guess, another plan to do sort of another tier list if this video is well received. And that's because May the 4th actually falls on a Wednesday this year, and I usually upload my podcast in the middle of the week. Usually it's Wednesday or Thursday, but I try to upload them in the middle of the week. And if this tier list is, you know, well received, then I'll do another Star Wars tier list for May the 4th, which is in about a month and a week at, you know, this moment. So it's about 5 weeks away. So it'll be like early 30 something when I do my podcast. But anyways, I'll just wait to see how people watch this video and, you know, if it gets views or not. And I'd love to do another tier list with Star Wars. So yeah, anyways, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I hope you'd enjoyed it. And until next time, see ya.